Hello everyone and welcome to another rant. This one's about everyone's favorite Shiba Inu. Just kidding, it's about Doge. Doge has been making the rounds in the news recently, and it's been interesting seeing the public's perception of government spending. Some people are viewing it as an obvious example of the inefficiencies of government, believing the figures speak for themselves, while others are looking at the figures looking for a deeper context, such as soft power, long-term investments, or even necessities. I don't know where to start with this, but I will say that it is frustrating to see people dig their heels in the ground so quickly.
After fact-check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas actually, it was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
There has been tremendous waste and fraud and abuse. In that process, we identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that?
Trump and Elon both spread a story that was a made-up scenario in their head the moment they saw the words condoms, millions, and Gaza somewhere in some government sheet. They claimed that $50 million worth of condoms was being sent to Gaza, and that Hamas was using the condoms to make bombs. This was a fabricated lie that had no basis on reality. They jumped the gun and never attempted to correct their story because their base just doesn't care. And once they were questioned on the story, they admitted that they got it wrong, but then shifted the focus to it being a waste of money anyway. They never found out what the money actually went to and why, just that it wasn't strictly spent on Americans. I have a question for his supporters. Is there any actual international aid that you deem acceptable without waiting for Trump's opinion? Do you believe in the idea of soft power, or the importance of international diplomacy? Personally, I think spending money abroad to stop STDs from spreading and being commonplace is good for the US, as it keeps more Americans safe from outbreaks and possible mutations in the future. Is it possible that foreign diplomats are skimming off the top? Yeah, it's possible, but that doesn't mean the actual reason for the aid is a bad one. But that's not the criticism. The criticism remains on the fact that money is being spent at all. Now, I understand that we have our own issues in America that we need to fix, but I can guarantee you that money is not going to go towards helping American citizens. Now, the topic has shifted to fraudulent government payments, and Elon did not hesitate to post some tables while investigating Social Security payments. Instead of immediately jumping the gun on this story, why aren't we practicing caution and waiting for more information that could possibly explain how or why values past the age of the longest living human on record are even being tallied and documented? I don't doubt that there are fraudulent payments going on, no system is perfect. But if I wanted to scam the government, I don't think I would make it as obvious as being older than the country itself. I'm sure there's some technical explanation, especially for a system built on outdated technology, but I'm also not going to deny that there's no corruption going on with government spending. I'm simply saying that the current evidence seems incredibly basic to the point that it can be misleading. For example, there was a Wired article that theorizes about the possibility of issues stemming from such an old programming language like COBOL, and how it can explain possible date discrepancies. Even Elon has complained about it on X, I guess in an attempt to show how slow and inefficient government is, but it's theorized that some of the entries, like those showing the age of 150, could be tied to a programming quirk of COBOL where dates are coded to reference points, with one such being the date when a conference on international standards was held. But that's just one theory based on a technical issue. Another theory points towards a more realistic answer. They simply never updated some tables. There are audits that show that it's most likely just not worth the money and effort to update all the people's deaths when they aren't receiving payments anymore. Instead of wasting time going back and confirming to know when someone died, they just never updated because their system does not rely on this information to confirm if someone should be getting a payout. If they have the data available, they'll log it, but otherwise it's not a priority. So if that's the case, why even make a big deal out of it? It seems to be relatively well run with about a 0.2% error rate. Sure, when the figure's in the trillions, even a 0.2% of it would be a large number. But again, this doesn't scream to me that the government is grossly mismanaging Social Security payments. If a doctor had told me a life-saving surgery had a 0.2% chance to kill me, I would be absolutely delighted with those odds. I would not assume that my doctor wants to murder me or that he failed med school. I want to shift this discussion into a bigger overall premise. Why are the people and this administration so infatuated with how the government spends money, but never continue on to how it impacts the average American citizen? How much will this entire cost-cutting spree save the average taxpayer? Do you want a government that provides nothing to you? Why aren't the 1% paying more in taxes than undocumented aliens relative to their wealth? If the goal is to provide a better life for most Americans, why are billionaires and the 1% paying less? Why are they getting even more tax cuts? Do you still think that the trickle is coming down 4 decades later? Do you not see examples of other countries abroad and how happy their average citizen is? How healthy they are, how much time they get off, how educated and informed they are? Is that not something you want Americans to have? Okay, that really didn't work. I guess the best way to condense it down is, do you really think this administration and DOGE is out for the good of Americans? If so, how does that look like? I'm curious because many people on the right never explain how this is supposed to make America great again. They never give me a figure on how much more money they will make when this is all said and done, or how their quality of life will be improved. I never hear about how the improved management of tax dollars will pay for some social service or benefit that we sorely need. Is this supposed to make housing cheaper and more reliable, like how our parents and grandparents had it? I can honestly say that I don't think any of these questions have an answer under this administration. I want to be wrong, but I just can't seem to find it. Nothing that is being done is going to have a positive impact on the average American in any valuable metric more than an actual tax code that finally makes the wealthy pay more, and funding social services for every American rather than paying for a new military when we're already the most dominant military force to ever grace this planet. I don't want trans women competing in female sports, but that doesn't mean I'm going to support a side that is fundamentally opposed to universal healthcare or free education. I don't like the woke mob or having to deal with pronoun talks or inclusivity quotas, but I also don't think that owning a home should be a dream that many will never realize. And while you may disagree on certain topics and lean more one way or another, the initial question is one I believe every American should be asking themselves. DOGE had me intrigued but has quickly disappointed me. But hey, maybe this will be the start of something good and will tie into the proposed US sovereign wealth fund somehow. But I don't have my hopes up because of how afraid the right was when Bernie was a potential candidate. Bernie wanted better for most Americans, yet he was labeled as a socialist or even a communist.
Bernie Sanders.
Well, I think he's a communist. I mean, look, I think of communism when I think of Bernie. Now, you could say socialist, but didn't he get married in Moscow?
He often used Scandinavian countries like Sweden or Norway when discussing social programs that could be afforded with tax dollars.
And I think we should look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden, and Norway, and learn from what they have accomplished for their working people.
And if those same supporters got a whiff of what a sovereign wealth fund does for a country like Norway, I'm not sure they'd be on board. Or maybe this is the long con, finally getting socialist policies passed under Trump disguised as making America great. Man, wouldn't that be a sight? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. That's it for this rant. Thanks again for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Rant over.